Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to this Nazir daf Mem Vav. We are going to begin on the bottom of Mem Hey Omid Beis by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisin, Haya Vashil es Shlomim. So we're continuing to discuss at the time of a Nazir when he becomes purified. So one of the things that he is doing is he will be cooking the carbon Shlomim, as we also mentioned that he will take his hair, which he cut off, and he will apply gravy on it and put underneath the pot of the shlomim. So he cooks the shlomim o shulkan. On this, there's different opinions what sholok means. The Mefarsh says she'in mavushal yafe, that it wasn't cooked well. That's one interpretation. If you look in the Bach, he says machmas shehu mavushal yoisimedai, because it was overcooked. Okay. Regardless, hakoin noitelas hazaraya. So the kohen will take the hazaraya bishola min ayil. He's going to take this cooked forearm of the ram. Also v'chala matzah achas min atzal. He's also going to take a challah from the basket. V'rakik matzah achas. Also a wafer. So as we mentioned, that the Nazir is required to also accompany the carbon with chalois. But Naisin is al kape hanazir, and he will put them on the palms of the Nazir. These things, umanifin, and he waves. He does a tenufa. By the way, Tosfos says beferish bishul yosem medai. So manifin, he waves, and v'achakach huter hanazir lishtoisen lo talmo mesim. That's it. After everything is done, seemingly all of this must be done, then we allow this guy who is, interestingly enough, he's called a Nazir. He surely shouldn't be called a Nazir anymore. We'll see based on the pasuk. He's allowed to now drink wine. He can become talmo mesim. Obviously, he could cut his hair, but he has no hair to cut, so that's probably why it doesn't mention it. As we continue to Mem Vavim and Aleph. Rav Shimon Aimer, Kivan Shenizrika Lavechem Hadamim, as long as Zrikas Hadamim has taken place for one of these karbanos, Chutter Hanazir Lishtos, Beyayin Latamo Mesim. So Rav Shimon is lenient, he doesn't require everything to be done, just this one thing. Says the Gemara. So Tanurban, the pasuk says V'achar Yishta Hanazir Yayin, or the pasuk in its entirety. It says V'heinif Oisim Akayin, Tenuf Lifnei Hashem. So the kohen does this tenufa, as we mentioned, this waving. Kodeshul kohen al chazeh tenufa v'al shoyka truma v'achar yishta hanazir yayin. So after the tenufa process, then again, the nazir is allowed to drink wine. And some people explain, what does it mean? He's not a nazir anymore. The idea is he's supposed to retain the feeling of being a nazir, even though he's not a nazir. All the messages and life lessons that he acquired upon being a Nazir, so he should still have that, even though he's not a Nazir anymore. Okay. So what does that mean? It means Achar Hamaisim Kul and Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer says that after everything, says the Mefarsh, Achar Carbon, V'achar Tegalachas, V'tegalachas Ma'keves di Rabbi Eliezer. He must hold that everything is Ma'akev. You cannot start drinking the wine until the hair is cut and everything. Chachamim Oimrim Achar Masi Yechidi. Even after any single action, says the Mefarsh, Achar Carbon, V'afal Gav Shedain Lo Gilach Tegalachas Lo Ma'akva. So apparently the machlokas is whether or not, even if you brought a carbon but you didn't yet cut your hair, whether or not that's ma'akev. So by Tamai the Rabbanan, why do the Rabbanan feel that shaving the hair is not ma'akev? One hand the pasuk says that the Nazir drinks wine, and then Viksiv Hasam, when it speaks about the waving, so it says Acher Hatigalachas es Nizroi. So let's look at this pasuk in its entirety. V'lachach hakoines hazaroya b'sheila mina ayil. This is almost literally from the Mishnah, because the Mishnah took it from the pasuk, that the kohen is going to take the forearm which was cooked from the ram. V'chalos matzah achas min atzal v'chik matzah v'nosan al kapei nazir acher his galchu es nizroi. So it says that he's supposed to do this process of the tenufa after the nazir has shaved. So he says, just like over there, achar ma'aseh yechidi. When it comes to the shaving, it's only after one action, so as long as you brought one of the karbanos. So Avkan achar ma'aseh yechidi. So that's how he learns this up. Says the Mefarish, achar giluach of a tenufa. After you shave, you did the waving. Okay. So Eima ad deika tervayu. Says the Mefarish, Damahasam over there achar tigol achas, that they've shaved. K'dechsev achar his galchu. Shavkan nami achar his galchu. Maybe you also have to wait until you've completely done everything. So it must be coming to tell you again that it's dafka when it comes to, again, at least one carbon, and then he does the tegalachas. But the truth is that he does the waving. But the truth is that the tegalachas is not ma'akev. Okay. Omarav. So tenufa b'nazir ma'akeves. So we just mentioned there's a machlokas whether the tegalachas is ma'akev. Now here he mentions that even the waving that the Kohen does is not so clear. According to Liba Daman, the question is, who's this like? That if the Kohen did not do the waving, then the Nazir is not allowed to drink wine or become tameh. So ilema Liba the Rabbanan. So if it's according to the sheet of the Rabbanan, when we say the Rabbanan, that's referring to the sheet of Rav Shimon. Now, Rav Shimon, again, is the Tanakama, who says, Rav Shimon is of the opinion, he says, Kivan shenizrikol of echamin hadomim hutter nos. Actually, it's not the Tanakama. It's the second opinion, that just as long as you did anything, that's enough, right? As long as you did the zrikas adam on one of these karbanos. So, according to him, Tigalachas Amr Banalum Akva, he already said that the Tigalachas, as we said, that was the machlokas in our Mishnah, that you didn't have to, if you didn't shave, it's not ma'akev. So if you don't, the shaving is not ma'akev, which you would certainly think it is, so tenufa miboy, then certainly tenufa is not ma'akev either. So again, according to Rav Shimon, he unbelievably says that the Tigalachas is not ma'akev. So if he holds that that's not ma'akev, then certainly the tenufa should not be ma'akev. So who is this opinion that says that the tenufa is ma'akev? It can't be like him, because if the shaving is not ma'akev, how could you say that this is ma'akev? El libda Rabbi Eliezer. So it's according to the shita of Rabbi Eliezer, that according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, which we quoted, achar masim kulam, you have to do everything. Subshita, after all, if you do everything, that obviously includes tenufa. And in fact, the pasuk seems pretty clear. It says again that he does the tenufa, al chazi ha tenufa, v'yachar yishna nazir yayin. The pasuk seems that that's what you're supposed to do. So madatima kivan inin kapara, when it comes to the tenufa, which is a form of atonement. So that's shiri mitzvahi. It's the remnants of the mitzvah. Says the Mefarish, Gemara with tenufa lachaper, v'chi tenufa machaperes vo in kapara el badam. I thought it's the blood that causes the kapara. Kidam hu nefesh yechaper el lomecha shim asa tenufa. If you did the waving, which is shiri mitzvah, which is just the secondary, the remnants of the mitzvah. So malav kasav ki'ulu keeper v'keeper. Gabi Nazir nami lum akiv kamash malon. So hachi nami lum akiv kamash malon. You would think, because this is only considered to be like the shiri mitzvah, so you would think that it's not ma'akiv. In other words, even according to the shita of Rabbi Eliezer, it's possible to think that just because he says that when it comes to the tegalachas, that is ma'akiv, maybe the tenufa is not ma'akev. And that's why he needs to mention that tenufa is also ma'akev, even though it's shiri mitzvah. If you look at the rush over here, the last line, it says, Hasha tegalacha shi beguf hanazir. This is the reason why, again, according to Rav Shimon, because the tegalachas is part of the body of the Nazir. Nonetheless, he says it's not ma'akev, so tenufa she'in ma'akevis b'shum makom miboy. We don't find that it should be ma'akev, so certainly it should not be ma'akev. So again, so basically what we're saying, the maskana, is that according to Reb Shimon, tiglachas is not ma'akev, and kol shekain tenufa is not ma'akev. However, the chiddush is that even according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says that the tiglachas is ma'akev, you would maybe think that the tenufa is not. That's why we need to mention this, that the tenufa, according to him, is also ma'akev. So it's a machlokas by both. As we continue Mem Vav and Beis. For fact, the Gemara, umi ma'akva. For some reason, the Mefarsh says ben Nazir. Is it true that it's ma'akev? Basanya zois taras ha-Nazir. The pasuk says, zois taras ha-Nazir asher yidor karban al Hashem. On the Israel, he made a neder to bring a carbon. Milvad asher tasig yadu kefi nidroi asher yidor kenyasa al taras nizroi. So is the pasuk in Bamidbar Perek Vav. So what are we going out from there? So he's saying from this pasuk, bein sheish lo kapayim, bein shlo kapayim. If the man has palms, so then of course, then he'll receive the different things we mentioned, the shlomim, the rakik, etc. But even if he doesn't have palms, so here's the problem. If he doesn't have palms, which maybe is another way of saying he has no hands, so how is he able to do tenufa with no hands? Says the Mefarish, l'kayim mitzvahs tenufa. Uvein she'en lo kapayim she'tenufa enu makeves. It must be coming to tell you that since this guy doesn't have palms, there's no way he could do tenufa, because he physically doesn't have hands to do it. So therefore, obviously, tenufa cannot be done, and therefore tenufa does not have to be done. And therefore, we see clearly that tenufa is not ma'akiv. The Ella hadasanya says taras hanazir bein sheishlo seir bein shein lo seir. Someone has a full head of hair. Let's say a guy who's just bald. He's a nazir, but his hair just doesn't grow. His head's completely bald. Are you going to tell me that not this guy who's bald, it's not ma'akiv? Someone who's a nazir min, which means he's bald. It's not because he's shaved. It's because his hair just doesn't grow. He's not able to grow hair. So what are you going to do? It's similar to the issue of someone who has no palms, can't do tenuva. He has no hair, you can't do teglachas, you can't shave. So on this, the Gemara says as follows. He says you don't need to pass the razor over his head, because what's the point of doing that? Because it's not accomplishing anything. So that's a chayra, an interesting leniency, at least on the surface of Beis Shammai, that you don't have to do it. No, you do have to pass the razor over his bald head. Yom Ravina, my eno sarach Beis Shammai. Sounds like, again, it must be very lenient for this bald guy. That's not what Beis Shammai means. Eno sarach eno takana. It means that there's nothing that he could do. In other words, it won't help. That lafi the shita Beis Shammai, if the guy has no hair and he's bald, by you passing a razor over his bald head, this symbolism is just just drama. It's just a fiction. It's not real, because you're not cutting his hair. So what's the point of it? So you didn't accomplish anything. So really, how this is interpreted according to Ravina, and this is the first lashon, is that according to the Shita Beis Shammai, since he's bald, he can never drink wine, l'chayri. There's no takana. Because according to Beis Shammai, tiglachas, getting a haircut, is ma'akev. And this is not a haircut. It's not shaving. Back in the Gemara. Beis Shammai yeshlo takana. However, Beis Hillel says you will need to cut his bald head. So, v'hainu d'Rab Padas. Diyomer Rabbi Padas. Rabbi Padas says, Beis Shammai Rabbi Eliezer Omer Devarach. They said the same thing. My Rabbi Eliezer. What did Rabbi Eliezer say? That is the same thing as Beis Shammai. The Sanya ein lo behen ein lo boy hein yad v'ragel. If let's say the person does not have fingers or toes, ein lo tahara lamas. So there's no way that he'll ever be able to become tahar. And this is referring to a Matzaira, because the process of Matzaira is he has to put the blood on his right earlobe, his toe, it is on his thumb. But if he doesn't have it, so there's no way he could ever become pure. Divru Rabbi Eliezer. So just like Rabbi Eliezer says, it's an unfortunate reality, but if he doesn't have the physical body parts to be able to do the placement of the dam on that part of his body, so it is ma'akev, and the fact is, if you don't have it, so you'll never become tahar. You won't be able to rid yourself of the status of being Mitzayra. So too, Beis Shammai says the same thing by Nazir, Memayrit, that there's no point of you putting a razor and shaving a bald head. So it's nothing. It's not considered to be shaving. It's not a haircut. And therefore there's no takana. You're always going to be like a Nazir. Rav Shimon Omer Yanichenu al Mikaimai V'yatza. You can put it on its place and that's it. In other words, what he says is that even though it's true, it seems to be that's not anything you can do about it. But if he doesn't have fingers, but let's say he has a hand, so you put the blood in the proximity of where his finger would be, and that would be sufficient. So Beis Hill, the Chachamim say, okay, he doesn't have the right thumb, but he has a left thumb, so therefore we'll put it on his left thumb. So that's one lashon. So according to Beis Hillel, then Beis Hillel holds that again you do need to shave his bald head. So too with no palms, just like having no hair, still the waving takes place with your arms. But the point is that tenufa is in fact ma'akev. So you do have to do it. But according to Beis Hillel, at least in this first lashon, you have to do it even though he's missing hair or he's missing fingers, toes. You still have to do it, but that will help, and he will no longer be Nazir, he will no longer be Mitzayra. Lish Nachrina, however, according to another lashon, Amrula Amirav Tenufa Benazir Ma'keves. So Tenufa is Ma'akev. So Liba Daman. Again, Ilema Liba Rabbi Eliezer Pshita. Di Omer Rabbi Eliezer Achar Masim Kulam. Now we know, according to him, as we said, you have to do everything. You have to do the Kalachas, you also have to do Tenufa. So everything's Ma'akev. El Liba Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan say, or Shimon, that you don't need to do the shaving. So obviously not ma'akev. So milo ma'akva. So lefi the Rabbanan, or Shimon, is it true it's not ma'akev? Avosanya zois taras Nazir ben sheish lo kapayim ben shein lo kapayim. So according to Rav Shimon, we see it is ma'akev. According to this lashon, maybe tenufa is ma'akev. As we see, a person with no palms it's needed to be done, but he can't have it done. The Eloha the sign is there's Tarsa Nazir ben Sheish lo Seir ben Shein lo Seir Hachanami the Ma'akva. You want to tell me against Ma'akev Osanya Nazir ben Morit Beisham Amrit Eno Sarach Haver Tararosh. You don't need to do it. Beisol Amrim Sarach. Rabbi Avina. My tzarech Beis Hillel tzarech ve'eno takana. Actually, according to Beis Hillel, when he says tzarech, means there's no takana. Well, Beis Shammai yesh lo takana. According to Beis Shammai, there is a takana. Upleged Rabbi Padas, and they argue with Rabbi Padas whether he says that Rav Shimon, that Rebbe Lezer and Beis Shammai say the same thing. Okay, question 7. Nazir Memayrit, a Nazir who has no hair on his head. Madino initiglachas lived Beis Hillel. So, according to the first lashon, sarcha havertal al marto, you still need to pass a razor over his bald head. According to the second lashon, ein lo takana. There is no remedy according to the second shot. Okay, question TA 21. Omarav tenufa benazir ma'keves laman. Il or Rabbi Lezer pshita. Do you ever achar ma'asim kulam? Right, you already said that. Obviously, it should not be ma'akev. It should be ma'akev because you have to do everything. Il Rabbanan itegalachas ol ma'akva madua tenufa ma'keves. So there's two answers. According to one shot, it's like Rebbe Lezer, and the chiddush is after tenufa hu shiri mitzvah. That even though it's like the remnant of the secondary of the mitzvah, still it's still going to be ma'akev. Right? This was on Mem Vav Amud Aleph. So let's just mark this down. This is TA 21. So this is Mem Vav Amud Aleph, TA 21. It's not a davar poshit. Ma'adatema kivando Indian kapara shir mitzvahi hachal lo ma'akev kamashmulan, that it is ma'akev. Or according to the second lashon, it's coming to tell you it's like the Rabbanan and the alfinan zayis taras and nazir kamosh be'en kapai ma'akev. Just like if a person doesn't have palms, it's ma'akev. The ein roy labila hachinami de tenufa. It has to be something which is fit to be able to do, just like the mixing of the mincha. So hachinami b'tenufa. So too the same din is when it comes to the din of tenufa. That was TA 21. Okay. Let's see the next mission. So the masnisim gilach al hazevach. So a person did the shaving because he did bring a sacrifice, so on one of the karbanos, the nims apostle. It turns out the carbon he did one carbon. It turned out that one carbon was posel, so tegalachto psula, because he shaved incorrectly, because it was based on a posel carbon, so his tegalachas doesn't count. So what does he do? So, let's just see this next line. Bizavachav lo olo. And the other karbanos, which could be fine, they don't help either. Says the Mefarish, the Seiser Shleishim. So he has to count another 30 days. I wrote over here maybe 7. V'zvachav shehifresh achshav olu l'sarcha hevi acher mim kaiman. Those karbanos, he has to bring other karbanos. Okay. So unfortunately, it's just he has to bring more karbanos. Okay, he has to count another 30 days. All right. I just want to see if there's Taisus over here. Atazoi. Let's look at this Taisus. Very good. So it says Vigilchu listim. Let's say the guy shaved his head. Liacha Malois Amrin and Reish Pirkin or Belezer Seiser Zayin or Rabbanan Shleishim. So in fact, it's true. It's a machlokas, whether it's 7 or 30 days. Ayin Taisus. So that says the Mishnah. Gilach al chatos. Let's say he shaved for a carbon chatos and it was brought shlo l'shma. In other words, it was not brought for the sake of a carbon chatos. V'yachach hevi karbanaisav l'shmon, and then he brought the other karbanos properly to galachta psula. So his karbana, so the galachas doesn't work. The zvachav lo, and the karbanos also do not work either. Gilach al oilo shlomim shlishman. Let's say instead you shaved on an oil or shlomim shlishman. V'yachach hevi karbanosav l'shman. Tegalachto psula. So again, the tegalachas is possible because you did it based on these karbanos shlishma. However, zvachavul oloi, and the karbanos don't help. There's Shimon Omer also zevach olo. That carbon which was shlishma doesn't help. Avol shar zvachim olu, but the other ones do come up. V'im gilach al shlashtan v'nimsa echem mehem kasher tegalachto kasher. Let's say you shaved on all 3 karbanos and one of them was good, so then your shaving is okay. V'yavi shar zvachim, and then all you have to do is bring other karbanos for the ones that were possible. Says the Gemara, Amrav Adabarava Zaysameres Ksavar Rav Shimon. Based on this, we could conclude that the shita of Rav Shimon, which he just said, that Oisu Zevach lo ololo, but the other ones do work. So according to Rav Shimon, Ksavar Rav Shimon Nazir Shigilach al Shalmi Nedava Yotza, that if a Nazir shaved on a carbon shlomim, which was not as a chayv, but as a nedava, that would also work. So my taima diamakra b'nosan al heish asher tachas zavach shlomim. L'kosav al shlomav. It doesn't say his carbon, but any shlomim, which includes l'char even a shalmei nedava. Okay, we're going to stop there, but let's first maybe see another few questions. Question 8. Gilach al echad mikarbonaisav. So on the chatos, not. On the oil on the shlamim, it's a machlokas tanoim. So that's what we said over here. Rav Shimon holds that ois is zevachol olo. This is by the oil of the shlamim. However, when it comes to a chatas, there's no question that it will also lo. The machlokas again is by an oila or a shlamim, which I think is identical to question TB22. Let's read it. Nazir shegilach al echad min karbanaisav shehevi shalashma him tegalachta psua. And he just writes, Rebbe Lezer oime gilach al chata shalashma tegalachta psua. Al sham v'al ola plukta d'tanakama Rav Shimon Adkan.